I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives, without Him being obligated, and I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and to protect the Muslim nation. I testify no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe, and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah, and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having a sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful and thankful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam, because Islam is the greatest endowment, because Islam is the only true religion, because Islam is the only religion accepted by Allah, by the creator of the universe. And we are grateful and thankful to Allah that we have access to the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, because the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah is the key to paradise. The knowledge of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah is the life of Islam. So the only way that the human being can achieve the safety in this life and in the hereafter, the only way that the human being can be sure that he's walking on the straight path is by following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is the only one of this time, and he's the only prophet that receives revelation. After all the prophets already received revelation, so no new prophet will receive revelation, and no other individual besides the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will receive revelation. So there's no way for us to know the guidance, the message from God, except through the prophets. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final prophet and messenger. So there's no way for us to know the message from Allah except through Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's why we're happy that we have the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah, because the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah, it is the knowledge that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with. So damos gracias a Dios que hemos sido guiados al Islam, porque el Islam es la mejor bendición, y el Islam es la única religión aceptada por el Creador del universo, y el Islam es la única religión válida. Y también estamos agradecidos que tenemos el conocimiento de Ahlul Sunnah, que es el conocimiento que ha venido transmitido a través de las cadenas de narración conectadas del profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam, conectadas de nosotros al profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Porque la única manera que el individual puede tener éxito en esta vida y en la próxima vida, la única manera que el individual se puede asegurar que está caminando el camino recto es siguiendo al profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam, y la única manera de estar seguro de tener ese conocimiento es a través de Ahlus Sunnah, de este grupo que se llama Ahlus Sunnah, que son la mayoría de los musulmanes. So this is important for us and for the one who really wants to be saved. There's people in this world that they pretend, they act, they're delusional. They say that they want to be better or do better, but they don't take the action. I always go back to this example. Let's say there's someone who they say they want to lose weight, but they don't exercise. They say they want to lose weight, but they eat cake and things that are, filled with sugar and so that's counterproductive. They say they want to do this and do that, but they do things that make them go further away from their goal. The person says he wants to be pious, but then he commits a sin. The person says they want more knowledge, but then instead of studying, they waste time. The person says that they're going to be organized, but they don't clean up. So there's no way that you can achieve something by doing the opposite thing. So for the one that wants to be saved, he submits and he looks for the information. And he hears and he accepts and he submits and he goes forward. But the one that wants to defend himself, defend his nafs, the one that does not want to acknowledge that they are wrong, the one that doesn't want to see that they have flaws, the one that doesn't want to admit that they need to change, that person, they will never achieve the thing that they say they want to achieve. It's just empty words. So for the Muslim, when we hear the verse of the Quran, when we hear the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we take it, we believe in it, we hold on to it, we know for sure that it's true. Because, we're Muslims and that's what we want. But there's people in this world that they don't want that. They want to make people think that Islam is lost. They want the Muslims to think that Al-Bukhari is just stories, like you tell at the campfire, just stories that people make up. They want people to think that Sahih Muslim is fairy tales. They want people to think that, all these rules that you follow, the woman wearing the hijab, and you don't have to drink, and you can't drink alcohol, and you can't fornicate. They say, these rules, it's just made up by other men. Where does it say that in the Quran? That's what they'll say. Where does it say that in the Quran? So there's people out there that they're spreading the message that Islam is lost. That the Muslims, they have been for centuries and centuries, for over 1,000 years, that they've been practicing something that is not in the Quran. These people, they call themselves Quranists. وفي العربية يسمون أنفسهم القرآنيين. وفي الحقيقة هم ملحدون زنادقة كفار. They call themselves Qur'anists because they say they only follow the Qur'an. Na'udhu billah. And that is a lie, of course. They lie. But they say that so that they try to trick the weak Muslims. They say, we don't follow men. We only follow Allah. We only follow the Qur'an. And what they're saying for sure is misguiding him. Because Allah, He revealed the Qur'an to who? To Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he's a man. So they can't get around it. Yani only people that are not educated, that are weak-minded, they might fall victim to one of those predators. But really the answer is easy. You can't have the Qur'an today. You can't read it or recite it if it wasn't for men that passed it on. From Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the companions to those after them. And the same way that the Qur'an reached us through those men, through that same system, is the same way that many hadiths reached us. So there's no room for someone to deny. One day we'll have a class just about that, but it's important to mention this a lot because these people are spreading on the internet and they're speaking in different languages. In Arabic, in English, in Spanish. They're trying to teach people, don't let another man tell you what God accepts or what God made forbidden, etc., etc. They say, you just follow the Quran, you read it, and you do whatever you want and interpret it how you want, and Allah will judge you. He's the only one that judges you. And they want to do with that Islam similar to what the Christians did with Christianity. That they just say, oh, I love Jesus, but they don't do anything what Jesus did. They just say, oh, I love Jesus, but they don't know what it says in the Bible. And that they claim is from Jesus. La persona que quiere la verdad, cuando encuentra la evidencia o cuando ve el signo o cuando le viene esa verdad, entonces la persona lo acepta, esa persona lo abraza y se somete a esa cosa. Porque en realidad esa persona quería eso. Hay personas que dicen que quieren la salvación, quieren la verdad, quieren ser aceptados por Dios, pero hacen el opuesto. Tal como hay personas que dicen que quieren perder peso, pero no hacen ejercicio. Dicen que quieren perder peso, pero se comen una torta entera, por ejemplo. Eso uno no puede lograr un objetivo o una meta si uno hace el opuesto. Entonces también hay personas que dicen que ellos quieren la salvación, que ellos dicen que quieren la verdad, pero hacen el opuesto, no se adhieren a la verdad. Pero alhamdulillah, nosotros los musulmanes, cuando nos viene un versículo del Corán o un hadith del profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam, o cuando un erudito digno de confianza nos dice tal y tal cosa es halal o tal y tal cosa es haram, nosotros lo aceptamos. Pero hay personas que hoy en día es un movimiento que se está, o pues que hay diferentes personas que lo están diciendo, diferentes personas que lo están enseñando, y no sé si están agregando números, pero sí están en las redes sociales como TikTok y como Instagram. Hay gentes que dicen, y lo que ellos dicen por supuesto es desviado y ellos son malos. Ellos dicen que solamente siguen el Corán y que no siguen el hadith, y ellos creen también que los acompañantes del profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam, después de que se murieron todos, las reglas y las leyes del Islam, o pues el Islam se perdió, y que desde ese tiempo, desde esa época hasta hoy, no se conoce, no se sabe en realidad qué es lo que es el Islam. Entonces ellos quieren decir con eso, por ejemplo, esas reglas que nosotros seguimos, por ejemplo, que la mujer se cubra con el hijab, o que las personas, por ejemplo, eviten las cosas prohibidas como beber alcohol, como fornicación. Ellos dicen, ¿a dónde está eso en el Corán? ¿A dónde está eso mencionado en el Corán? Y tratan de causar duda dentro de las personas en esos juzgamientos que nosotros debemos de seguir. Pero para el musulmán cuando recibe la evidencia, la sigue. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah va a haber una clase dedicada enteramente a ese tema, pero es importante cada vez de advertir contra esas personas, porque ellos están ahora haciendo muchos videos y cosas en internet, en diferentes idiomas, en árabe, en inglés y en español también. So we're going to finish off the rest of the chapter of fasting. There's only a little bit left. Yesterday we went over the invalidators, which is 1/2 of the integrals. And in order for the fast to be valid, you have to have the intention and avoid the invalidators. And then I listed the invalidators. So really quick, we'll just mention briefly what those invalidators are. So we said the person during the day of Ramadan, he has to abstain from sexual intercourse, and he has to abstain from making his mani exit through contact, and he has to abstain from inducing vomiting, and he has to abstain from committing apostasy, and he has to abstain from inserting any substance that has a size into his body cavity except the pure saliva from its source. And we talked about what the open cavities are. And also the person has to not go insane even for a moment. So if someone during Ramadan was fasting and then they lost their mind for 10 seconds and then they got their mind back, their fast is broken. They still have to act like they're fasting, but after Ramadan is over and before the next Ramadan comes, they have to make it up. But they're not simple, of course, because they got hit with insanity that's not under their control. And also they have to avoid fainting the entire day, and from the dawn until sunset. So if they faint before dawn and then they wake up after sunset, then their fast is not counted. This is for fainting. We mentioned the judgment for sleeping, that the person's fast is still valid as long as he had the intention before he went to sleep. So let's say the person right after Maghrib, he broke his fast, he had iftar, and he prayed Maghrib, and then he was so tired, he fell asleep. And it was still Maghrib time, he fell asleep. And before he fell asleep, he had the intention that he's going to fast tomorrow. But then when he fell asleep, he stayed asleep until Maghrib of the next day. Allahu Akbar. He was really tired. He worked 5 days straight, 13-hour shifts. So anyways, he slept for a long time. He slept for 12 hours. So if he had the intention before he fell asleep, his fast is valid. That's for sleeping. But we mentioned that the person that sleeps throughout the whole day of Ramadan, he misses out on a lot of reward. So we don't encourage the person to sleep through Ramadan. But of course, it's understood that the person, because he's not eating, because he's not drinking, he's going to have a lack of energy. He's not going to feel, some people, they get lethargic during Ramadan. If you can find some caffeine patches, you just stick them on your arm and you get some caffeine through your skin. This is okay to do. I've never found any of those. And I don't recommend that you inject yourself with caffeine. That would be dangerous. But anyways, you get sleeping during Ramadan, that's fine. You can take a nap, but try to avoid sleeping the whole day. But even if you do sleep the whole day, the fast is valid. So that's a recap of the invalidators of Ramadan, of fasting. And so now we got to the days that is not permissible to fast. So now we're going to mention certain days that it's not permissible to fast and it's not valid. So the author said, and fasting on the days of Eid, the days of Tashriq, the second half of Sha'ban, and the day of doubt is not valid unless it is connected to what precedes it, or for making up missed days, fulfilling a vow, or as a regular habit. So the two Eids, those are easy to know. The first of Shawwal is Eid al-Fitr, which is the Eid that comes after fasting Ramadan. So it's not permissible or valid to fast on that day. Even if someone tried to, the fast wouldn't happen religiously. And even if they had the intention and they didn't do any of the invalidators, it wouldn't be counted as a fast, because that day is not accepted to fast. That day is not a day that you can fast on. And religiously, the fasting would not be counted. So that's the first Eid. The second one, which is the bigger one, is Eid al-Adha, which is the Eid that happens after the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the day of Arafah, which is the Eid that happens where many Muslims, they slaughter sheep. Many Muslims, that are not at Hajj, they do certain things. So this is called Eid al-Adha. It's haram and invalid to fast on that day, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. That's the calendar day. Now there's 3 days after the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, the 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul Hijjah. These days are called the days of Tashriq. It's also haram and invalid to fast on those days. So fasting the days of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, as well as any of the 3 days following Eid al-Adha, known as the days of Tashriq, is not valid. And in the Shafi'i school, not valid, not permissible. Even if the intention is for expiation for enjoying prohibited acts. And there's some things that if the pilgrim, the one who is in the Hajj, if he does them, then there's a certain expiation that he has to pay. And sometimes part of that expiation that he has to pay is that he fasts 7 days. So that fasting that he has to pay, he has to wait until after the days of Tashriq are over. Similarly, fasting during the second half of Sha'ban is not valid due to the prohibition mentioned in a hadith narrated by Abu Dawood. So, which month are we in right now? This is for my youth. What month are we in right now? Everybody should be raising their hand. The month of Sha'ban. My good friend Ismail Sha'ban has told us that we are in the month of Sha'ban. It's the same word. No. It's a famous last name. Yes. So we are in the month of Sha'ban. How about what day of Sha'ban are we? Who knows? I'll take that answer. Technically, it's the night of the 3rd. Tomorrow is the 3rd day of Sha'ban. Already 3 days. Yep. Before you know it, it's going to be 23. So the first of Sha'ban was January 31st. January 31st. Because this, the beginning of Rajab, it lined up with the beginning of January. So all through January, so for example, January 1st was Rajab 1st. January 2nd, Rajab the 2nd. January 3rd, but all the way up until January 29th. On the 29th, we checked for the crescent. We didn't see it, so we go one more day. So January 30th was Rajab 30. But how many days does January have? 31. So then the 31st of January was the 1st of Sha'ban. And then the 1st of February is the 2nd, which was, that was the day that passed today. Tomorrow's going to be February 3rd, right? And tonight is the night of the 3rd. So technically his answer is correct, but the day that just passed today is the 2nd of Sha'ban. Tomorrow's going to be the 3rd. I'm sorry, what? Today's February 1st? Okay, yeah, so today was the 2nd of Sha'ban. Yeah, today's the 2nd of Sha'ban. Tomorrow's going to be the 3rd of Sha'ban. But we're the night of the 3rd, the eve of the 3rd. So today's February, I thought today was February 2nd. Whoops. But already some strange things already happened on February 1st. That medical plane went straight down. Like, so fast. And there's a recording too that there's some like weird things that are being said. Like some guy saying, "Help me." Sounds like he's saying, "Help me." It sounds like he's moaning a little bit. Where? They got the recording, the audio. From that plane? From that plane, yeah. So that you can see it here in the background. It sounds like he's saying, "Help me," like that. Sounds like it. But for sure, he makes a sound. Some people say he's making it sound like a moaning sound, like ugh, like that. Like somebody stabbed him or something. But anyway, so strange things. May Allah protect us here. So during Sha'ban, there's something special that happens, which is the 15th of Sha'ban. And the night of the 15th of Sha'ban is a special night in which the supplication is accepted. And the Prophet ﷺ, he encouraged his nation to do good deeds on that night and to fast the day of the 15th of Sha'ban. So, inshallah, we're going to have something for that, right? We're going to have some special activity here in the Musalla, maybe some dhikr. And so we'll do what the Prophet ﷺ, what is said that he told us to do. The author said, similarly, fasting during the second half of Sha'ban is not valid due to the prohibition mentioned in a hadith narrated by Abu Dawood. لا تقدموا رمضان بيوم أو يومين صوموا لرؤيته وأفطروا لرؤيته فإن غم عليكم فأكملوا عدة شعبان 30. So this hadith was narrated by Bukhari, and Muslim, and the narrators of the Sunan and other than that. So what does this mean, not fasting the second half of Sha'ban? It means not fasting any of the days after the 15th, except for making up a fasting or fulfilling a vow or doing a habit, except if you fast from the 15th all the way, every single day up until the first of Ramadan.
So you're saying if on the 15th of Sha'ban, you do the Sunnah fast,
And then you continue fasting.
but you can't just do one day?
You can do the 15th of Sha'ban, but then if you don't fast the 16th, right? So then the 20th of Sha'ban, you cannot fast it, except if you have a reason, like a habit of fasting every Monday and Thursday, making up a makeup fasting from a previous Ramadan or from something else, you can, all the way up until the beginning of Ramadan. But just to fast without any of that during the second half of Sha'ban would be haram, except that the person, they fast from the 15th all the way to the next month. The hadith of At-Tirmidhi, narrated by Abu Dawood, was not the one I recited. It's إِذَا انْتَصَفَ شَعْبَانَ فَلَا تَصُومُوا. So that's the hadith about the middle of Sha'ban, and it means after the 15th to fast it without connecting it with what's before it. So would it be valid or permissible to fast after the 15th of Sha'ban except for a makeup fast, a vow, or a habit? As for, there's another day which is the day of doubt. So fasting the day of doubt is not valid, even if it is done as a precautionary measure, because of the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do not precede Ramadan by fasting 1 or 2 days before it. If someone is doubtful about the start of Ramadan, they should complete the month of Sha'ban as 30 days. Or if someone, they didn't sight the crescent, they should complete Sha'ban 30 days. So what is this day of doubt? It's a day when the people, there's rumors that the crescent was sighted, it wasn't sighted, so the people aren't sure. So some people, when that happens, they say, well, you know what, I'm going to fast tomorrow, just in case it's Ramadan. This is haram. So it'd be the 29th of Sha'ban, they go and look for the crescent, and then the rumors start. Oh, they said that they saw it. Oh, they said that they didn't see it. So they're not sure. Or someone who, his testimony is not accepted, he claims that he saw it, but the people are not sure. And so in this case, what are they supposed to do? We're supposed to go 30 days. We'll go one more day, finish the 30 days of Sha'ban, and then the next day after that will be the first of Ramadan. So someone on that 29th, the night of the 29th, if they say to themselves, just in case tomorrow's Ramadan, I'm going to fast. This is called fasting the day of doubt, which is the 30th of Sha'ban. Anyway, we're going to define what's the day of doubt. The day of doubt is the 30th day of Sha'ban, about which people who do not establish the sighting of the new moon testify, such as children and others like enormous sinners, slaves and women. They claim to have seen the new moon of Ramadan on its night. Therefore, the day of doubt is the 30th day of Sha'ban, and this specific 30th day of Sha'ban. It is not permissible to fast on it, considering it as a part of Ramadan. Fasting on the day of doubt and after the middle of Sha'ban is prohibited for those who do not have a usual practice of fasting during that time. Also, it is not prohibited for those who connect what is after the middle of Sha'ban with the middle. We mentioned that in detail. The author said, benefit, it is disliked to single out fasting on Friday as a voluntary fast without reason. So, if a Muslim fasts only Jumu'ah without a reason, And this is going to be a bonus question for any level. See who can answer that. But if a Muslim fasts, a sunnah fast, Jumu'ah, with no reason, for no reason, just only Jumu'ah, this is makruh, disliked in the Shafi'i school. And disliked in the Shafi'i school, it means you shouldn't do it, but you don't get a sin. So when they say without a reason, bila sabab, what do they mean by that? When they say it's disliked to fast, to single out fasting, Jumu'ah, without a reason. What do they mean without a reason? You got this one? Alright, let's hear it.
If someone, if they didn't have to make up a fast, they didn't do a vow, they just did it for without any reason.
So he said, for example, someone didn't have to make up a fast, or they didn't have a vow. Okay. So that's correct. So for example, if the person had a habit and it landed on that day, or he made a vow, for example, that he's going to fast on the day that his sick relative gets cured. So it happened to be that day. Well, then it wouldn't be singling out Jumu'ah. Or for example, he fasts Ashura and it landed on a Friday. Like it's happened a few times already. I think it happened last year, but it happened recently. It was either Ashura or some other day. So it wouldn't be disliked. No. That was good. The author said, note, among the signs that confirm fasting is the occurrence of what is customary in the Muslim lands. For example, if it is their consistent custom to announce Ramadan by firing cannons after its confirmation according to the Islamic law, then fasting is confirmed by this. So, in the past, and probably still till today it's done, but if a certain Muslim area, once it becomes confirmed that the next day is the first of Ramadan, then the Muslims who were in charge of that area, they would have a system where they would do fireworks, or they would shoot cannons, they would do something that it would make all the people know tomorrow's Ramadan. It was like their special sign. So if that reaches the person, then they take that as the sign that they can fast. So you can know that tomorrow is the first of Ramadan through that sign. If you're a Muslim living there and you didn't see the crescent, but you saw the fireworks or you saw a cannon, then you know that tomorrow is the first of Ramadan. But it has to be something that is established by the Muslims. Like in some places they would shoot the cannons. It says, second note, the one who is informed by a slave or a woman about sighting the moon fasts. Likewise, if he was informed by a child or an enormous sinner and believed him, although his testimony is not confirmation to the judge. Instead, the judge relies on the testimony of the pubescent and trustworthy free Muslim by saying, I testify that I have seen on this night the crescent of Ramadan. A trustworthy person is someone who fulfills religious obligations, avoids enormous sins, and does not persist in minor ones until his good deeds outweigh his bad ones, maintaining his integrity as mentioned earlier. So here we have another case. This case is about confirming for yourself at least that Ramadan is in. So the original case is that if there is a male, pubescent, Muslim, free, trustworthy, they saw the crescent with their naked eye without glasses. If they wear glasses, they have to, for example, and if they can see with their glasses, they find that place in the sky, then they take off their glasses and they make sure that they can see it without their glasses. So they gotta squint or whatever they gotta do to see it without their glasses, and that's how it counts. So that person that has those 5 conditions, Muslim, pubescent, free, male, trustworthy. Oh, also that adheres to the etiquettes of the virtuous peers, that has muru'ah. Oh, that comes with trustworthy. Sorry, that comes with trustworthy. So 5 things. That person, if he, just one of them, if he sees the crescent, he testifies to the Muslim judge. He has to say the words, I witnessed, or I bear witness that I saw the crescent of Ramadan this year. Once he tells that to the Muslim judge, what does he do? He makes it official. He says, based on the testimony of this person, tomorrow is the 1st of Ramadan. And so once the judge, he makes it official, every Muslim who is in that area, and even if there is different cities, but they share the same sunrise and sunset, they all have to follow it. Based off the sighting of that one Muslim that was deemed official by that one Muslim judge because he testified. Now let's say if one of those 5 things was missing, let's say it was a woman that testified to the judge, he wouldn't make it official. He wouldn't say, oh Muslims, it is hereby official that tomorrow is the 1st of Ramadan. He would not. He would not. Okay, that's the original case. Okay? But if a woman came to you and she told you, I saw the hilal of Ramadan. I saw the hilal of Ramadan. And he believes him or her, and he believes her, he fasts. Same thing if it's an enormous sinner, same thing if it's a boy that's prepubescent. If you believe them, you fast. No. So that's interesting. Then he says, instead the judge relies on the testimony of the pubescent and trustworthy free Muslim by saying, I testify that I have seen on this night the crescent of Ramadan. Who is the trustworthy person? A trustworthy person is someone who fulfills religious obligations, avoids major sins, and does not persist in minor ones until his good deeds outweigh his bad ones, maintaining his muru'ah and adhering to the etiquettes of his virtuous peers, integrity as mentioned earlier. So I would like to ask a scholar about this, but why do they say, and he does not persist in minor sins until they surpass his good deeds? Because that's an enormous sin in itself. So why do they say to avoid enormous sins, and they also say to avoid this specific sin, which is also an enormous sin? I always wanted to know that, a question I've had in my mind. But anyways, if the person, they do small sins to the point where those small sins become greater in number than their good deeds, this in itself is an enormous sin, and he'll have an enormous sin written against him. But the trustworthy person, he has to have those 3 things. He has to have, he has to be Muslim, of course, has to be pubescent, of course, has to be no enormous sins, and he has to adhere to the etiquettes of his virtuous peers. So what does that mean? It means that, for example, he doesn't tell a lot of non-beneficial jokes. You know how some people all the time, they just want to say jokes all the time and tell non-beneficial jokes, even if it's not forbidden or anything like that. That person is not trustworthy, even though he didn't commit a sin. The author said, if a trustworthy person testifies to sighting the crescent moon before a judge, and the judge affirms this testimony, fasting becomes obligatory for the people of the region where the testimony was confirmed, and for the rest of the people in nearby regions based on the unity of their sunrise and sunsets. If their sunrises and sunsets differ, as in the case of Damascus and Baghdad, where the sunrise and sunset times do not coincide, then the ruling does not apply to them, and it is not permissible for their residents to fast. So, basically, according to Imam Shafi'i, the sighting of the crescent is regional. So what do they mean, sunrise and sunsets? That means if you live in a place where the sunrise is, let's say, a certain time, let's say the sunrise is 7:15. So every place that the sun rises at that same time, 7:15 in the morning, and that they're aligned with you with that rising of the sun, every place that's like that, whoever sights the crescent in that area, it applies to that whole area. But it wouldn't apply to, let's say, people who live on the other side of the world. So if we sight the crescent here in Florida, then where does that apply to us? Yani from here to, I don't know, wherever the sunrise is the same. Does that go all the way up to Tampa? I don't know. But yeah, it won't extend too far. But will it apply to someone in California? No. Will it apply to someone in New York? No. Will it apply to someone in Chicago? No. Because their sunrises at a different time. That's according to Imam Shafi'i. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, may Allah raise his rank, fasting is obligatory for the people of every region if they know that fasting has been confirmed in another region, regardless of the distance between the two regions where fasting was confirmed. It is not necessary for him that the two regions agree on sunrise and sunset times. Therefore, fasting is obligatory for the people of the farthest west if they know that fasting has been confirmed in the farthest east, and vice versa. So that means if a Muslim in Indonesia, if he sees the crescent and of Ramadan, and then he sends you a message on WhatsApp telling you he saw the crescent of Ramadan, then you can fast the next day based on him telling you that he saw the crescent, even though his sunrise and his sunset is way different than yours. That's according to Imam Abu Hanifa, and the majority of the Muslims, they follow that nowadays. Because what do they say? They say, oh, Saudi Arabia saw it, oh, such and such country saw it. So once they confirm that at least one Muslim in the world has seen the crescent, then if that news reaches you, you can choose to go by it according to Imam Abu Hanifa, or if you want to go according to a Shafi'i, you just go by your own sighting. So you can't do that. Even if the news reaches you that tomorrow's the first of Ramadan, based on the sighting of someone who lives in a region that his sunsets and sunrises don't align with yours, you can choose to say, I'm going to go according to my own regional sighting and not fast the next day and wait an extra day. You can't do that. And actually, I know one sheikh who he did that. He would do that. I don't know if he still does it now, but in the past he used to do that. MashaAllah. The author, rahimahullah, he said, whoever corrupts the fasting of a day of Ramadan has no excuse for breaking it with sexual intercourse, and has no excuse for breaking it with sexual intercourse, then upon him is the sin and immediate making up for it, as well as the expiation of freeing a slave. If he cannot, then fasting 2 consecutive months. If he is unable, then feeding 60 poor people by giving each of them a mud of the predominant food of the country. So this is a specific expiation punishment that needs to be paid for invalidating the fast through sexual intercourse. Explanation. It is obligatory for the one who corrupts his fasting with sexual intercourse on a day of Ramadan with certainty, even if it were technically, like for dawn to break while he is having intercourse, and he continues it while not having any religious permission to break his fast. Remember when we said that if the person travels, he can break his fast? So imagine that you were traveling and it was in a way that you're allowed to break your fast. And you decided throughout that day that you wanted to use that religious permission. And so the way that you broke your fast, and you didn't drink water first, you didn't go eat something first, you just immediately had intercourse with your wife, and that's how you broke your fast. Since you were traveling, you have that permission, and it's halal to do. So that's what he means by without an excuse. So if the person, he breaks his fast on the day of Ramadan, this is specific to Ramadan, without an excuse through sexual intercourse, then he has to pay his expiation. Now when he says technically, and then when he says technically, it's referring to if the Fajr came in while he is in the intercourse and he continued without having an excuse. So that would be, technically, him breaking his fast with that. So what happens is he gets the sin, which is an enormous sin, and he has to make it up immediately after the Eid, and he has to pay something called a kaffar. So what is it that he has to pay? He has to free a slave. If he's unable, then he has to fast 2 consecutive lunar months. And if he's not able, physically, then he has to pay 60 muds, meaning he has to give 60 poor people 60 muds, and each one mud. Mud is when you put your 2 hands together like this, and you pour, let's say, wheat inside of your hand. So that amount of wheat that can fit inside your hand when you cup it together like this is 1 mud. Yes. I will double check that, but what comes to my mind is yes, because you can always give more. You can always give more. Oh no! So it has to be at least 1 mud. Yeah, he has to feed 60 poor people. At least 1 mud each. So he can't give 60 muds to one person. And this expiation, it would increase in number if he broke his fast with the intercourse multiple times. So let's say on the first day of Ramadan, he broke his fast through intercourse without an excuse. He has to pay that expiation. And on the second day, if he breaks his fast through intercourse without an excuse, he gets another one on top of that. So it accumulates with the times that he does it. And that expiation is not an obligation upon the one who is penetrated. It's only upon the one who does the penetrating. And if the one who penetrated, if he was forgetting that he fasts, he doesn't have to pay the expiation because he wouldn't be sinful. But if you forget, you're not sinful. Also, if he was excused ignorant, like he lived in a place that he was far away from the people that teach the rules of the religion, and he couldn't find anybody to teach him, then that person is called excused ignorant. And if he didn't know that it's haram to have intercourse during the day of Ramadan, if he does do it, he doesn't have to pay the expiation. Then he says, if he was compelled and he coerced to have intercourse, like someone put a gun to his head and told to have intercourse, he doesn't have to pay an expiation if it was done against his will. And also that does not break his fast. As for breaking the fast of other than Ramadan through intercourse, even if it was an obligatory fasting like a vow or the like, he does not pay a kaffara. Yes, go ahead.
Is it only like they're threatening to kill him, or is it for like
That's a good question. For this one, I didn't specifically hear, but usually it's the case that coercion extends beyond the threat of death for other than blasphemy. For other than blasphemy. For, like, let's say, buying and selling, or divorce, the person doesn't have to get threatened that he'll get killed in order for it to be considered that he was forced. Someone might tell him, if you don't sell me this property, I'm going to ruin your reputation, or I'm going to put you in jail for a long time, or I'm going to I'm going to destroy, let's say, a large amount of money that you have. This is so because he doesn't want to go to jail, or because he doesn't want to get like large money taken away from him, he says, okay, fine, I'll sign the contract. And he gives him the whatever ownership or whatever, that's considered to be by force, therefore invalid. So for this, and I never heard specifically, I'll ask. But usually for other than blasphemy, the coercion extends beyond the threat of death. It doesn't just have to be threat of death. But if someone wants you to commit kufr, the only way that it will be considered that you are forced is if they threaten to kill you. Nothing else. If someone wants you to commit blasphemy, only if they say, I'm going to kill you unless you say it, in that case, would you be allowed to say it to save your life? And it has to be without you being pleased with it, and without you liking it, and while you're firm on Islam. And that's only with the threat of death. If they tell you, I'm going to take all your money, unless you blaspheme, you tell them take all the money. Only under the threat of death for blasphemy. For other than blasphemy, then there's different things, like being threatened with jail, or being threatened with like getting your money taken away, or getting beaten severely, but not to the point of being killed. I don't know.
Wait, what about the relatives?
Relatives? No, I don't know. I'll ask inshallah. For blasphemy, for sure, no. For sure, it's only if they say blasphemy or else I'm going to kill your mother, then your mother's going to get killed. You can't do it to save somebody else's life. No. And if someone says, if you don't kill so and so, I'm going to kill you, you tell them, kill me. You can't like go kill someone so you can save your own life. I don't believe in that. You gotta just take that one. The author said, From this, it is evident that there is no requirement for expiation for those who invalidate their fast by engaging in activities other than sexual intercourse. Furthermore, there is no expiation or sin upon those who engage in sexual relations during the daytime of Ramadan with the intention of utilizing the concession due to travel or illness. For instance, if someone is a traveler and their journey allows them to break their fast, or if they are ill and it is permissible for them to break their fast, and they choose to utilize this concession by engaging in sexual intercourse, then there is no expiation required. There is no expiation required. Let's say they were traveling, they could break their fast, but they did it, they had the intercourse without the intention of using that permission, that special religious permission. They would be sinful and their fast would be broken, but they don't have to pay the expiation. No. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Any questions about that? No.
Did you say the new Muslim would fall under the excusing?
Someone like the new Muslim, yes, the new Muslim, but without falling short, yani. And the person that's like a new Muslim, yani, basically someone who they're ignorant of that judgment, but not because they neglected learning, but because they don't have a way to learn, for example.
In respect of fasting, somebody say lying and with anger, somebody say some blasphemy or warning, they say fasting is okay.
So yes, alhamdulillah, we explained this case yesterday. And so basically we're saying, for sure, if someone blasphemed, their fast would be invalid, because we said apostasy invalidates the fast. So that one for sure invalidates the fast, if someone commits kufr while they're fasting. But what if someone, they didn't even curse a Muslim, they just got angry and they said a curse word. You know, they said profanity. They said the F word, the S word, the B word, the MF word. They just said it out loud, like if they had an attack of Tourette's or something. So saying that type of speech, that type of vulgar words, it doesn't break the fast. It doesn't invalidate the fast. It does not invalidate the fast, but you lose the reward. You lose the reward. Same thing if you do ghibah, which is you talk about a Muslim, something true that he doesn't like, behind his back, without an excuse. This is haram. It does not break the fast, but you lose the reward. Lying while fasting, you lose the reward. Cursing a Muslim while fasting, you lose the reward. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, he told us, if you're fasting and then someone starts cursing you, that you should say, Allahumma inni sa'im. And some scholars, they said, it doesn't mean that you say it out loud. It just means that you remind yourself that you're fasting. Yeah. Some scholars, they did say you say it out loud. But that's why, because you're fasting, so you're in this state where you should be performing the ideal. And so cursing and talking bad and saying ugly words doesn't go together with fasting. But it doesn't invalidate the fast. Some people, they say that, they think that they're ignorant, they think that, but that's just an error. That's a misconception. And Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he said, if that was the case, who among us would have a valid fast? Subhanallah. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Are there any Other questions? For the losing the reward? The things that we mentioned are gossip, which is an enormous sin if it's done to a pious Muslim, and talebearing, which is also an enormous sin, and cursing another Muslim, which is also an enormous sin. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sin, because if you say ugly words, if you say like vulgarity, it does affect the reward. You say vulgar words. No. طيب, any other questions? طيب, نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. That finishes the whole chapter of fasting from Umdatul Raghib.